To Lou TV special Saturday mornings. No, I think I delayed that. Special Saturday morning Lou TV here for you guys, talking college football. We have a nice little viewer number in the chat. Here with my boy Zach. No Andrew today. He's got a family thing to go to. I didn't realize he had a family, but that's nice to hear. So we're all pumped up for this. Zach, we've been chatting in pre-show pretty intensely. I think this is a great combination weekend of just great games plus great fantasy matchups. The early slate is, DraftKings has a huge tournament, which is what we're going to focus mainly on today. But I think that's kind of sparked some enthusiasm, and I think there's probably going to be some overlay in it. I have 10 entries in it. How many entries do you have in it?
I have 3. I don't have quite as many as you have, but I have 3.
3. 3 of the, let's see here, 2,461. 2 hours left. That's going to get pretty close, I think. Pretty close, but it should be an exciting day. And I think one of the crazy things is the fact that these early games are so different than the old ones. I feel like the games are less than usual, so it limits options. And then they of course dummied down their pricing, and everybody seems to be a tad cheaper in terms of running backs and receivers. So it should be an interesting day. Let's start it off with some quarterbacks. You don't have to give me your 6 quarterbacks you're using in your lineups. You can just tell me price dependent, all this stuff. Which quarterbacks are you liking the most for this early slate Saturday?
I like Dane Evans from Tulsa against SMU. I mean, I think any quarterback against SMU is probably a pretty good play. First, was he 6,700? I think that's pretty good price for him. I like Greg Ward against Tulane. 4,700. I think that's very good price for him. I also like. I'm just running through these pretty quickly. I like Nick Marshall against Texas A&M, but 9,500. I think you can do better if you were to go Evans or even Ward, because it's going to be tough to match. If you take Marshall, you're going to have to cut back somewhere, and I would rather not do that when I got a guy like Kevon Lucas and Melvin Gordon in my lineup.
Yeah, I saw you were talking to your lineup, and you definitely have Melvin Gordon in it, which I like. I mean, I just could not get the money to free that up. Some of the quarterbacks I like today, I mean, obviously Nick Marshall. To me, he's not much of a GPP play just because of the fact that, with 9,500, that's something like 40-something fantasy points. And as much as I think I've been talking about how great he's going to be since the beginning of the year just because of the fact that, what's his name was gone, Trey Mason, but he's only gone for 40 fantasy points once, and 39 points another time. So you're looking at multiple rushing touchdowns to get him there. But to be fair, that's one of the best cash game plays. If you can fit him in and you like everything else, then you got to think that he gets to you an easy 30 to 35 fantasy points.
Definitely.
Some of these other quarterbacks I'm looking at, obviously Dane Evans was my number 1 ranked quarterback this week. Just so obvious. I'm not even going to talk about it because, you're just talking about really quick, SMU is just so bad. Some other mentions. I love how they put SB Richardson on DraftKings, by the way. What is the deal with Sam Richardson where they have to feel the need to put Sam B. Richardson or SB Richardson? Is there another 6 Richardsons on the team or what?
Well, I think, didn't we go over this?
I don't think I was there for this.
I think Andrew brought this little nugget out. He said that there was another Sam Richardson on the team at Iowa State, so they had to put their middle initial.
Gotcha. Because I was thinking every time I see it, I'm like, when are they going to fix this? Because I'm tired of looking. Every time I'm typing them up, I'm almost tempted to put SB, and I'm like, no, I'm not. There's no other Sam Richardson I'm going to talk about here. Bryce Petty at the top. Here's a question for GPPs. Bryce Petty, which should be a great matchup for him against Oklahoma. I've harped on it all month. October and early November, obviously, that Oklahoma's defense is bad against the pass.
Right.
Bryce Petty gets to do it. Now, Shock Linwood is not going to have too great of a game, in my opinion, because that run defense Do you see Petty as a better player than Marshall today, and maybe like the higher stakes? Maybe you're looking for a GPP play here.
I mean, he's a good play. I just think his ownership's going to be really high, and I would rather go with somebody that's 10% owned and that I can get roughly the same value out of than a guy that's, you know what I mean? Like instead of him being 50% owned, because I think people are gonna see Marshall and Petty up there at the top, and they're like, okay, which one am I gonna take? A lot of your casual players are gonna do that.
Yeah, that's definitely a casual player play. What about? I'll go through my list of guys, and I want to ask you a couple opinions on some of these other ones. Luke Falk, I ranked. I love him. 57 pass attempts, and he didn't even play a full game last week. And I know people are going to say stuff like USC against a very good USC secondary, but no, that's not a very good USC secondary anymore. But still good enough. To me, Oregon State is very overrated. You take out their game against Portland State, and you take out a game against Washington where they threw like 15 times, and it's Skylar Miles throwing it 15 times, and they boost their passing average by like 50 yards, which puts them in like the 90s. Now, I know it's a little unfair, but if we're looking at Washington State's offense, you can't possibly compare them to Portland State or to Washington. I'm sorry, I am justifying that, so I like Falk. Let's see here. Anthony Boone, to me, is a very interesting option. He's gotten going with Jamison Crowder, and Jamison Crowder's gotten going lately as well in the last 2 games. Syracuse is a very interesting team. They haven't really given up a ton of yardage in the last 3 games to passers in terms of maybe yardage and TDs, not super great games, but the fact that he's getting heated up at a different price than all these other guys is interesting to me. And then I like Ward Jr., but I'm going to counter you with a little bit of Patrick Tolles. What do you think about Patrick Tolles? I think Andrew was talking about him maybe in the chat or in our little Google Hangout chat box earlier. But what do you think about Patrick Tolles against Georgia?
I mean, I like him. I mean, Georgia's so inconsistent on defense, like especially against the pass. I think he could have a big day, but are we sitting here looking at Patrick Tolles as the guy who came out and I guess Kentucky was dominating there the first 4 or 5 games of the season, and we expected huge things for the rest of the season? Now they've kind of run into that wall of SEC play.
As a team, I think yes. Now, as like an individual player, like as an individual person, skill level, I think Patrick Tolles could step it up. And it's only like a 10 or 12 point favorite, I think Georgia is. They're going to be passing, and Mississippi State, I think people are going to remember that game, and to me, that's really the reason why he stands out to me is because he's had such huge games, like the Mississippi State game.
Yeah. But you look at Arkansas a couple weeks ago against Georgia. They threw off for almost 300 yards.
And that was Brandon Allen.
Yeah. So, I mean, I get where you're coming from with this. I mean,
so I definitely think an option there, especially low priced. I think, what is he right here? It's
right. He's more than the same price, yeah.
All right, now give me your opinion on this. Kyle Allen against Auburn. They're going to be down a whole lot. They're going to be passing, and there's no possible way he plays as bad as last time. And something I heard from, I think, Dan Back over at Roto Grinders, they just played I don't think it was Dan Back, it was somebody at Roto Grinders, so conservative that they never gave Kyle Allen a shot to really put up numbers. What are your thoughts on Allen?
I mean, like you said, I think he has a better game than he did before. And they've had a little more time to kind of prepare him for this. But I guess he's not a bad play at 4,800. Auburn's defense hasn't exactly been great. So at 4,800, I think you could slip him in there a lineup or two, just take a shot with him, because I think a lot of people are going to be scared off by last week.
Yeah, he's going to definitely be he's going to go from one of the highest owned quarterbacks to probably one of the lowest owned quarterbacks, at least of guys talked about. I mean, obviously, I don't know. Let's see here. I don't know. I'm trying to find Jacoby Brissett has not really been talked about. That's
what I was going to throw out there. I was going to ask you what you thought about him.
I ranked him. He was towards the end of my quarterbacks where I pretty much stated, like, this is sketchy territory.
Yeah.
Watch out. And, he's passing 30-plus times, which is nice. Georgia Tech gave up almost 300 yards to Michael Brewer, so that's good to see. But in the end, I think the fact that he has done so poorly in the last 4 games, the fact that his 4 total touchdowns, his rushing numbers haven't been good. I just don't see myself rolling Brissett over a guy like Tolles or Greg Ward Jr. with his running ability.
Well, let me ask you this then. What about the other side of that NC State Georgia Tech game? Justin Thomas.
Justin Thomas. I was really on Justin Thomas.
All or nothing guy, though. I mean, it's like you got to have 3 rushing touchdowns out of him for him to even carry that value, because he's only going to throw it 10 times a game.
Yeah, Justin Thomas, and Lou, I'll get to it. I'm trying to get a nice segue here. I'm going to give away a T-shirt, but dang it, Lou, I need to get a good segue here. All right, so Justin Thomas, to me, like you said, all or nothing. My only issue with him is the fact that he's around Trevor Knight, who I'm starting to get a little man crush on last weekend, which is terrible for the show. The show dynamics are going to go downhill big time after something like this. But I kind of like Trevor Knight, man, and I think the fact that he's right there next to Justin Thomas has taken me from using Justin Thomas. You see, really quickly, you see Lasky and Perkins are out for Georgia Tech. So to me, that says they're going to pass it, they're going to run it with Sinjin Days, and they're going to run it with Justin Thomas. So I think Justin Thomas is a good play. He could pop off for that 46-point type game, a 30-point game like he did in week 3 and 4. But I think I'd rather have Trevor Knight personally, especially if Sterling Shepard is out. Let me figure out this T-shirt thing here in a second. Tell me what you think of Trevor Knight and the possibility of maybe Sterling Shepard out compared to him being in. And I know you hate him.
I was about to say, you're asking me my opinion on Trevor Knight. Okay. Yeah, I don't like him, just personally. I think I got this personal hatred for him. But fantasy-wise this week, I think he's a pretty good play. This Baylor, I think it's going to be a pretty high-scoring game, like the most Baylor games are. Just Shepard being out is going to hurt. But I guess my question is, who's going to take over, the receiving options then? Because, I mean, I think the way you're going is Trevor Knight's going to put more on himself to run the ball.
Yep, more on the ground. Trevor Knight, what have we said in Google Hangouts for the last 2-3 months when we talk? Trevor Knight is forced to do something he's really bad at and never does something that he's really good at.
Yeah.
Am I right?
Yeah, you're right.
He never runs it enough, and he's a great runner. Okay, wasn't that how he beat Bama last year, was the ability to run and pass?
Yeah, I mean, he mixed it up really well in that game.
So
I just think, he's not going to be able to just go throw for 80 yards. I mean, he's going to still have to throw for 250, 300 yards, but who's it going to go to?
Yeah, well, he threw for 230. Let's see 230 last game. He's going to be touchdown dependent if he throws for 200 yards, obviously. I don't see 150 yards rushing like he did against Iowa State, but my thought process on Trevor Knight is their total is something in the 30s. They're projected to win, and Baylor's run defense is giving up 2.9 yards per carry.
Right.
So where do the points come from? And to me, that's Trevor Knight maybe getting it to the goal line with some runs or some passes, and then either plugging them in himself or throwing it out to. I don't think Deron Neal is awesome, but he's done enough in the red zone to
You don't think Shepard plays?
I don't know if Shepard plays. It's so sketchy. I had him in 3 lineups, and I was so pissed when I had to take him out because I just really like him. So I went from he went from questionable to probable to questionable, and it's just really sketchy with college football, man. Really, really sketchy. So, Zach, how do we want to give away a T-shirt here? We have a pretty good crowd. I'm trying to figure out, do we want to do a trivia question?
I mean, that sounds good. You asking me to come up with the question?
I'm trying to decide what the best proper way to do it is. We can do a Twitter question here, and whoever tweets me the correct answer in the first first, obviously. Do you want to do a game? Which game intrigues you the most? Maybe we say final score of a game, or maybe the biggest fantasy point total in a certain game. What do you think? Oh, here we go. How about this? Trevor Knight fantasy point total. Okay.
Okay.
Tweet me or you, and make sure you have the hashtag so it's easier to find. Hashtag LUTV. And whoever gets the closest to Trevor Knight's DraftKings fantasy point total will win a T-shirt. We'll give away 2 T-shirts. So the 2 closest numbers, and then obviously the tiebreaker would be whoever did it first, the first 2, in terms of timing. So we're looking for Trevor Knight fantasy point total on DraftKings. We're looking for you to tweet it to me at Realist Chris K. I went through my 7 Twitter names that I had at the past, and then include a hashtag LouTV. All right, that way it's easier to find.
Yeah.
I think we pretty much got all these quarterbacks in really quickly.
Real quick. Andrew tweeted at
he's
you.
tweeted us a bunch. I'm ignoring him because he's very rude at this moment. Go ahead. Tell him what he said, because he thinks he's so funny. He thinks he's like the personality on the show.
Oh, well, okay. There's 2 tweets actually. He says, "Important question. Without the personality of the show, how will you fill up 15 minutes, let alone an hour?" And then better question, how much of the show is dedicated to Lamar Jordan from New Mexico? That's what he's talking about.
Lamar Jordan, your boy.
Yeah.
D-Coop, you got to tweet it to me. There's no way I possibly remember it on this full jam-packed day when you just put it in the chat box. A couple quarterbacks I want to briefly touch on, because we touched on 20 minutes per position. We're right on target here. Taylor Kelly, Everett Golson, and Hackenberg and Trickett. I want your opinion on all 4. They don't have to be very long, but tell me what you think about those 4 guys.
Golson's been playing incredibly late, all season really. He's the reason they're even only have 1 loss, and they could very easily be undefeated right now. But I personally think Arizona State's going to win this game, by more than, I think it's a 2-point line right now, maybe right around there. I think they win by double digits, personally. Double
digits. So who does the scoring in that one? It's going to be in the 60s, correct?
60s?
Do you think it'll be in the 60s, like right at 60, which is what Vegas says, or do you think it's going to be one of those like the game last week against Washington where it's like 24-13 or something?
No, I mean I could see like a 34-17 kind of game. Like Arizona State, Jalen Strong has been virtually unstoppable this year. I mean, it doesn't matter who the quarterback is. I mean, they've been throwing him the ball. He's clearly been the number 1 receiver, and it's not even close. So he's been basically what we projected him to be, which one of the very few guys that's done that this year. That
really has done that this year. I think, really briefly, Golston's, the amount of touchdown percentage he has for offense, it's like 75% of offensive touchdowns for Notre Dame are by him. So if you think Notre Dame wins, if you think Notre Dame's going to be in the 30s and loses, you have to think that Golston's going to have a good game, because that's just what he does. And he still has William Fuller and Corey Robinson there in the red zone, and Folston, who's going to help manage a better 50-50 split, so they're not crowding the box or going back in coverage. Taylor Kelly, to me, is the GPP of these 2. I've heard from people that think that he's finally healthy now. Last week he was playing in the rain, and that kind of disturbed some things. I wish that Strong would do better with those 2. Those 2 connected have not really done it like last year. He was much better with Berkovici or whatever his name was in the 3-4 weeks. But anyways, the 2 mid-tier guys, Hackenberg and Trickett. What do you think?
Man, Hackenberg struggled this year, man. For the most part, as opposed to what we expected him to do. They're playing Indiana. I think the matchup's good for him. I think I like him more than Trickett, honestly.
I was going to say, between the 2, I think I'd rather roster Hackenberg, because Trickett has shown us. Trickett's shown us what he is.
Yeah.
He's a 15 to 20 fantasy point guy.
And I don't think this is his best game. I don't think playing against Texas you'll see his best performance of the season by any means.
Much worse matchup for him compared to Hackenberg. I'm a super Hackenberg hater. I'm like Davis Maddock levels of hate on Hackenberg. His
Are
he
you
has
like are you like hating on Hackenberg like I hate on Trevor Knight?
yes.
Okay.
I would agree with that statement. I just think that the fact that he's got 4 single-digit matchups in a row. Maryland is not, and he's throwing it like 40 times a game. How do you throw
Yeah.
it 40 times a game and not put up 10
Yeah.
fantasy points?
He went 18 of 42 against Maryland.
So, anyways, and we agree that Turkett has that tough matchup. I've said this for weeks. Like he was the most overrated fantasy player in college football. The amount of times that West Virginia runs now compared to what they used to,
Yeah.
or what people thought, they average like 48 rushes a game now. It's
His
crazy.
pass attempts have declined almost every week.
Yeah, so you got to think that that you really can't use that one there. All right, so running backs here. I mean, let's say you find whatever value you need, whatever lineup, which running back are you really like putting in as many lineups as you possibly can today?
That's not named Melvin Gordon.
I mean, it could be Melvin Gordon if you can afford it.
I like Artis Payne from Auburn for 5,800. I think he's a really good play against that terrible A&M defense. I actually like Corey Clement too. Like we talk about Melvin Gordon all the time. For 4,900, Clement could easily go over 100 yards in this game. But other than those two guys, I like St. John Days from Georgia Tech, 4,300, and I also like is it Zach Langer from Tulsa?
Zach Langer, yeah.
Yeah, those are the guys I've been
keying on the most.
Yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I don't have the room currently to fit in a Melvin Gordon, but I 100% see why you would do it. It only makes sense with the way Purdue plays, with the way anybody in the Big Ten plays, not named Michigan State, or even, I guess, Ohio State a little bit there. But
have you looked at his game log this year, Melvin Gordon?
Yeah, I saw it the other day, and it was just like, what the heck?
Like his worst game, which is pretty crazy, was against
his worst game by far, like not even close. There's no comparison to how bad this game was compared to others.
Yeah, Western Illinois, 17 carries, 38 yards. Every other game he's been at over 100, pushing 200, sometimes over 250.
Or he's got like 17 touchdowns.
Yeah.
It's just crazy.
That's the only game he didn't score in.
That game was such an anomaly for him because Melvin Gordon, the guy that never catches passes and only runs touchdowns, caught 4 passes and a touchdown.
Well, he scored a touchdown. He still scored a touchdown that game.
Yeah, he did it through the air, which is so hilarious for him.
Right.
So, yeah, I'm with you. I think Corey Clement is a good option, a guy I would roster only if I have more than like 4 lineups, because I think there's always that like little part of the chance that he only gets like that game against Maryland where he's 90 yards and a touchdown.
Yeah.
It's not bad, but 15 points for almost 5K is kind of.
I think his ceiling's 15 carries. Like that's what you're looking at. Like 15 carries, 100 yards is kind of what you hope for out of him.
Yeah, exactly. He's only got more than 15 carries. Well, he's got 15 carries or 15,
his
16,
average
16,
is probably
17.
about 15.
Yeah, it's really at about 14, 15 carries. But let's see, what running backs? I mean, obviously Cameron Artis-Payne for me is like the top guy. It's almost to the point where it's like, thank you Draftkings for marking him so low that he's going to be so. I almost like he's so good. It was such a good matchup. Like, what's the point? Like, what do you gain from fading him? Like, what are the chances he puts up less than 20 fantasy points? Seriously, like what? If you had to put a percent on chances he puts up less than 20 fantasy points, that's 100 yards and 1 touchdown on DraftKings.
I think it's like 5%.
It's 5%, man. Like, and if it's not him, then Nick Marshall's got like 7 touchdowns.
Right.
So I have to think that you put him in as many as you can.
Let me ask you this. I have one more that I meant to throw out there. Drake Johnson from Michigan. What do you think about him? 3,300. I mean, he's pretty much minimum price. I mean,
yeah, he's on my list too. But the problem with him is he's like super GPP because of the fact that Brady Hoke hasn't named a starter. Like I looked online, it's co-starters. I have seen a bunch of tweets about quotes from Hoke in the comments. What's really being said is this: they could start in any sort of formation. They have no idea what formation they're going to start in. and any of these formations could have any of the 3 running backs starting on. So pretty much they said it depends on what formation we start in. So, even if, to me, I think the carries are going to go 60, 30, 10 in terms of percentages.
Okay.
I don't know who's got the 60. I don't know who's got the 10. So if you have like 20 lineups and you want to roll a Drake Johnson, go for it. But I think that this matchup isn't good enough to take the risk at this point. I was hoping, when I wrote him up, I was hoping they would like give a clearer look at it because, he obviously has some talent. He had a good game last week. The matchup is pretty average to maybe slightly above average, but I just can't fathom rolling him out there unless I have a ton of lineups.
Right. Okay, so let me ask you this. Would you rather roll a Texas running back or him?
Are they the same price?
No, I'm just asking.
I would rather roll Malcolm Brown. Well, what's the price?
I mean, Malcolm Brown's 4,500. It's not like you're going to break the bank for him.
I would rather roll Malcolm Brown, probably.
Okay.
Yeah, probably Malcolm Brown. I wouldn't roll either of them, but if I had to choose, I'd probably choose Brown.
Okay.
That's how little confident I have. Unless for some reason you find out 11:45 that Drake Johnson's starting, then it gives you a little more confidence going into it. Other running backs I like Nick Chubb, who has been great. Ben Pritchett made a good point yesterday on his show. They've given him less and less carries, and his fantasy points have gone up and up and up. He's done it through the air, 10 catches and a touchdown. He's done it on the ground, obviously, something like 500 rushing yards in 3 games. So, and a bunch of touchdowns consistently. So I love Chubb against Kentucky. If you've seen them play, you realize that Hudson Mason has nothing, and their receivers are nothing. So they have to do that. Run him. I like David Cobb, an interesting guy. Typically, I wouldn't really want to. This weekend, I would say I don't want to roll him at 7,400, but the fact that he is going to be so low owned, in my opinion, that it really boosts his potential with what I want to do with my lineups. A good matchup against Iowa, who's really not been as good as they typically are against the run. 2 guys I want to get your takes on: DJ Foster and Kenneth Farrow.
Yeah, I was just actually looking at DJ Foster. I was going to say something to you about it, but of course I like Arizona State in this game, but like they've just been they've spread the ball around like that. I've watched a couple Arizona State games this year, and DJ Foster, I like to throw him the ball, I like to hand him the ball, but he never gets a lot of carries, and if he does, it's because they're probably struggling running the ball. They're just trying to force feed him. But I think it's hard to pass up his receptions. That, like, if he gets 7 catches, like he might break one for 30 yards, and you've got a pretty good fantasy day just from that right there.
Yeah, my take on Foster, and someone sent me a really informative tweet. I appreciate whoever, I can't remember who did it, but pretty much Foster has been thrown back into that like slot receiver role a little bit, kind of like a Byron Marshall. Who was the running back last year for Arizona? Marion Grice, right?
Right.
Marion Grice was the guy that was the running back.
But Foster still had great season.
Oh, he had an awesome season because he was playing slot receiver and getting carries, and then he became the go-to guy at the end when Grice was hurt. But they've pretty much thrown him into that same role, I guess. He's still getting 10 to 15 carries, 10 to 12 carries. But they have this Demario Richard, a freshman who likes to scour Twitter and retweet stuff about him, which is what he did when I tweeted about him. And he's been productive in his 2 games. So do I see like the carries there? No, I think 10 to 12. But the fact that he is so safe with the amount of catches he gets.
Yeah.
He hasn't scored.
I mean, DJ Foster's the second leading receiver on the team.
Yeah. The guy, his reception numbers are crazy. It's like 4, 5, 6 every game, it seems like.
Right. I mean, I think you're safe there, and they're a point per each one of those. I think that's pretty safe to say he's going to get you 5, 6 catches.
I mean, I think he's an easy 15 fantasy points against Notre Dame.
Yeah,
with the potential of 35 because of the way he catches. He breaks one. He could go 6 catches, 80 yards, a touchdown, and then have 50 yards and a touchdown. And what's that? 11, 17, 23, 30 right there.
Exactly. I mean, and at 6,000, that's not overpriced. I think he's
No.
pretty well priced right there. Even, yeah, Notre Dame's supposed to be, pretty good, but I think they're at home. Arizona State's at home. I think that's a pretty safe play, honestly.
All right. What about definitely a safe play. What about Kenneth Faroe against Tulane? We've talked about in pre-show how bad this Tulane defense is, or just in team in general is. He's kind of catching the ball lately, getting more of the carries. What do you think about him against Tulane?
Man, I remember we started the season. We talked about the Houston running game, and it was like just kind of pick your poison kind of thing. Like you take which one. They had two backs, Ryan Jackson and Faroe, and it was kind of like who's hot right now. And Faroe's, I guess, the hot man right now. So, but even with that said, I don't think you can ever expect him to have a 30, 40-point game. I think you're looking at 20 points as kind of his I don't want to say his ceiling, but I think that I wouldn't expect much more than that.
To his likely number, you think?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think.
If I'm putting my eggs in Ward's basket, Faroe's not going to have that big of a game.
Yeah, you can't rely on both of them. I agree with that for sure. I think what you said about Faroe's, I don't honestly, yeah, like you said, it's not really a ceiling. It's more just like a really projected likelihood. Like
right.
His ceiling is sure, it's like what 28 points is what he had that last game.
Right.
But like, can you really count on him to catch another touchdown pass when hasn't done that all year?
Right. You take that away, and he's right at about 20.
He's right at about 20. So, I mean, sure. What's intriguing to me about him is the amount of running that Houston's doing with Ward at quarterback, including Ward. Ward's carried it like 37 times in 3 games. But how efficient Ward is, and they still continue to run it. So I think Faroe has that potential. If Faroe was in the 4,700, he'd be on some of my rosters. But at 5,200, I'm kind of passing.
Mm-hmm.
Instead, I'm going for a guy like Terrion Folston, who has kind of grasped that that first running back position for Notre Dame and has done very well with it. Over 300 yards last 3 games and 3 touchdowns. Do you like Folston against UNC?
I'm sorry, say that one more time.
Folston against Arizona State. Do you like him?
Not really. I don't. I think Golson's going to have to, have a Heisman-like game to win that game, and I think he's going to have to do his best to do that. Now, Folston have a pretty good game. I think 20 is about what you're looking at again. I mean, like, it's tough to. I don't know, man. Notre Dame's they're such an enigma, man. Like, I don't know what to think about Notre Dame. Like, on paper, they don't look that good.
No, but they have the second best college football quarterback record in football right now, though.
Yeah, I know, and it's crazy. Like, because I don't think, like, you look at their schedule. Like, I have their schedule, like, because I have a formula that I use to. I've told you about my formula, right?
You told me about the formula.
Yeah, I have a formula that picks the 4 teams in the playoff. Won't get too deep into that, but I've been looking into their each team's schedule, and Notre Dame, they have Rice, Michigan, Purdue, Syracuse, Stanford, North Carolina, Florida State, Navy, right? And in the games where, like Purdue, they beat them 30-14, Syracuse 31-15. It's not like they're dominating these teams. And then Florida State, they could have easily won that game. And then Navy, of course, they come out and only win by 10. So it's so hard to tell, like, what Notre Dame's going to play.
Yeah.
I personally avoid Notre Dame players. That's just me.
Because you just don't understand the Fighting Irish.
Yeah, I don't. It's the luck of the Irish, man. It's gotta be.
Why I like Folston, the carries, the recent production. He's starting to chip away at that Golson, the fact that Golson owns all the touchdowns. Yeah, I get it. UNC is a good matchup. Navy is an above-average matchup. Florida State, though, was not really like that great of a matchup for him. It was average, I would say, and he put up 120 yards, good yard per carry amount. If you look at his numbers, he's had good games. He just hasn't gotten the carries.
He hasn't really gotten in the end zone. I mean, other than those 2 games that you mentioned, Navy and North Carolina. I mean, that's again like it was the first 6 games really just them figuring out who was going to shoulder the
It
load?
had to be though, didn't it? Because look at who's getting carries. Kay McDaniel is getting carries. They really spent that long to figure that out.
Yeah.
Now I'm not going to be on Folston 7-8 times in my lineup, but I think I'm probably at like the 4 to 5 range. It's just a really good range for me, price range, and I just seem to fall into it. And like you said, I think he's safe for 18 to 20.
Right.
And at this point, I kind of just want to get to the next one with the guy.
Yeah, real quick, just because I think it might be pretty funny. How many people you think roster Todd Gurley? Just because they're idiots and they don't pay attention.
Oh, 1%. He's been out for so long now that it's going to be,
Because, I mean, he's at 89. He's at 8,900. Somebody would be like, oh, he's out. Why is he out? If they're smart, they would even just click that and just read it. But, like, somebody will roster him. I just know it.
I think it'll be very low. I think the fact that the red O, the red Cheerio next to his name, is going to give enough there. Other running backs, Sinjin Days, we've talked about it. They're two of their starting running backs are out, and he's you don't typically see a running back for Georgia Tech get 20 carries in a game, and he's done that twice in a row.
Yep.
Demario Richard, if he was in the 3,000s, man, I would totally be kind of looking at him, but at 4,100, I don't see enough I think he's got upside, but I don't think at 4,100 you could really consider it that much upside. And then finally, I like Langer. You mentioned him. He gets the carry. It's SMU. Brandon Hayes and all those Memphis guys are not that great, okay? And they did very well against SMU. Langer is the one that gets the carries. Tulsa is good enough to get up on them and want to run it, but they're not good enough, in my opinion, to just break away from them and win by 30.
Right.
So I think Langer's going to get a lot of usage in that one. Anybody we want to talk about?
In that game is.
Yeah, it's your boy.
We won't get to him yet. We got to do wide receivers next. But
you want to get to that, or do we have any running backs we missed out on here?
I think the only other game would be the Iowa-Minnesota game. And I like you said, you like Cobb. But
I don't like Weissman, dude. I don't like Weissman.
You don't?
I don't. Let me see if I tweeted about it earlier in the week. It's pretty much like he's a touchdown-only guy, like a serious touchdown vulture.
But he's gotten 2 in almost every game.
Yeah, but it has to end sometime. It has to end sometime. Well, I mean, look at it. Had something to do with the style of running backs that have beaten him. Like the guys that have done very good against Minnesota are like Akeem Hunt. What's Illinois? Josh Ferguson has done well. TCU ran well, but none of these guys, to me, are the same running back as Mark Weissman.
Right.
And I'm also kind of fearing the fact that he's a touchdown vulture. You look at maybe some comparative running backs. Northwestern's Justin Jackson is probably comparable, bigger, not super fast guy. Michigan's running backs, none of them are that impressive, but same stature, I would say. Maybe a little bit thinner than a big Weissman. But, if you're relying on touchdowns for him, I don't think I can possibly do that at 5,500. At 4,000 or 4,400, I'm on it. 5,500, I'm off of it. Receivers, Kevon Lucas.
Yes.
Go for it. You are the inventor of Kevon Lucas. Kevon Lucas is here because of you.
Yes.
Please go.
I feel like he's 8K because he was mentioned in our show preseason as a sleeper, and now everybody's on him, so they had to put his price really high.
Yeah, it was unbelievable. I actually remember, I swear to God, I'll never forget this. I remember saying, do we have anybody else we want to talk about? And you're like, oh, real quick, I want to say something. Kevon Lucas, Tulsa, sophomore, good player, could do some things, but, it's in Tulsa. So just keep an eye on that. And I swear to God, I go, dude, even Kevon Lucas's mom would not consider him. And Kevon Lucas's mom looks really dumb right now. So Kevon Lucas against SMU has to be, to me, one of the safest with some of the best upside of the weekend here, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think you've seen his last 2 games are pretty much identical. I mean, minus a touchdown in the South Florida game. But I mean, he's catching 10 passes almost a game. So I mean, that alone right there should tell you that in this game against SMU, he's going to get that 100 yards and a touchdown, most likely. I think he's safe to get 25 points.
It's not even close to me. Like 25 points is it? Like that's it. Like that could be. You could wake up in the end of the first quarter have 25 points.
Right. If he has a game like he did against, was it Tulane to start the season? Or that's the one where he had 13 catches, 200-something yards, and 3 touchdowns.
Yep.
And I said, there he is.
There he is. I did it.
The breakout came in week 1.
Did not take long. What other receivers do you like? Maybe like a Jamison Crowder who's come on strong in the last 2 weeks. Maybe Antoine Goodley off a bad week. Jalen Strong. What do you think on that front?
I mean, all of those guys you just mentioned. But a guy that I've watched all year that he's been so good that nobody really talks about is John Harris from Texas. The guy's been putting up numbers, and nobody's really even talking about it because Texas isn't any good. But he's been their like main receiving option, and against West Virginia, I don't see them really containing him.
Yeah.
At 5,200, it's not like he's a huge risk.
No, I'm with you. I think that he's a very good option. I just not on Tyron Swoops enough for me to be on John Harris just because of the fact that Swoops is suddenly not throwing it as much.
Right. Okay,
I think
we'll jump off. I know you.
I mean, I like John Harris. I have no problem with John Harris.
Right.
I don't personally. I'm not on him this weekend. I think John Harris is a great receiver. I read something interesting about him being like in the top, not even in like basically at the edge of the top 10 receiver depth chart before the year, and he wanted to graduate and leave pretty much, and then he decided he was going to stay, and his dad predicted like an 1,100-yard receiving season. It was kind of interesting, but he's come on strong. He was thinking about moving to Texas Tech, but he stayed at Texas and has done very well with it. Who are some of these other guys you're looking at?
Deshaun Fox, Connecticut. I don't know if you mentioned him earlier, but he's getting carries now. I mean, he's kind of their all-around playmaker. Jeremy Davis is still questionable to play, I think, today. So Deshaun Fox at 4,100 is a really good play. I also like Andrew's guy, Jordan Villeman. I think he's coming on strong for them, especially against Wazoo. I don't think they're going to stop Oregon State one bit. We talked pre-show about the Iowa State-Kansas game. You asked me Lazard or Nick Harwell. I like Lazard if I had to pick one of those two, but I think Harwell is a pretty decent play as well.
Yeah, I think there's some very intriguing. There's a ton of receiver options, and really this is what's creating like the variance in all 10 of my lineups is these receivers, like what's leaving with what price range and all that. But I think obviously Lucas, to me Goodley is going to be a good play. I just don't see how. Like it was like the perfect storm of bad things to happen for Goodley to have a bad day. I think he dropped like a really possible touchdown or a long play. So I just don't see that. They were down or they were up so much. I just don't see that happening again. Crowder, I like. He's come on strong in the last 2 games. He didn't have any touchdowns 2 weeks ago, but he had 8 catches for 99 yards, and he's really put numbers up that just like once or twice before this week or that last week. So I like him. I like.
Earlier, you said you were on Patrick Tolles from Kentucky.
Yeah.
So, which receivers are you looking at from that game?
I got no idea.
Okay.
No possible idea. I guess.
I'm just asking.
It can't be Javes Blue because then you're looking at a guy that could go 3 for 80 and a touchdown, or a guy that could go 1 for 6.
All of their receivers seem to be that way, though. 4 catches, 70 yards, maybe a touchdown.
One thing to mention, when that Mississippi State game happened and they did such a good job of passing it, it was all short routes. It was those screen plays, throwing it to the edge of and that was a lot of DeMarco Robinson. So I would say maybe DeMarco Robinson.
Right.
3,000. He had a 4 for 86 and a touchdown. Consistent 3-catch guy, but really I just don't. I don't think I would rather do that. I would rather take a chance on a different lower price receiver there. Deshaun Fox, like you mentioned, is a very interesting play. Jeremy Davis is back. They say that Fox could pass it. They didn't want to tempt him with the run or with the rain or something. So that's a very intriguing option there. This Washington State receiver group is intriguing to me because I don't know who Falk is looking at. I like Isaiah Myers because he's he's 4,300 and he's got potential. They're going to pass it 60 times. You have to think that, he gets 8 to 10 targets, right?
Right.
Craycraft could possibly not even play, so that would boost Myers big time if that happens. And Vince Mayo is, I guess, technically their number one guy, correct?
Yeah.
So you're looking at a guy there at 7K. I feel really odd about him at 7K for some reason. William Fuller, I like it with Golson. If you think Golson's going to throw it, then obviously Fuller's the guy. He had a bad week, but I don't see that happening again.
Hey, another guy, he's 3,700, Speedy Noyle. I think that's a pretty good play.
Speedy Noyle at 3,700 is also a good play. A nice pivot from like a Lazard or a Montgomery from Iowa State as well.
Because I think you said Allen's going to have a better game. I mean,
he's got to have a better game.
And even though we're not saying they're going to win, they're probably going to get blown out. But again, that further strengthens the point they're going to throw the ball.
Well, even in a bad game, he put up 5 catches, 69 yards, and a touchdown.
Right. I mean, that's kind of they've been trying to get him the ball a lot more as the season's gone along. So.
And he returns kicks.
Yeah.
Let's see here.
I got another guy. He's minimum price. Markeith Ambles from Houston.
Ooh, Markeith Ambles.
Yeah, I mean, his stats haven't been that impressive, but as the season's kind of gone along, he's gotten a lot more targets.
Well, yeah, Greg Ward out at quarterback obviously helps there.
Yeah, I mean, he's minimum price. I mean, take a shot. I don't think it's worth paying the money for Greenberry. I don't know what he was what at 3,900. I mean, I guess they're about the same, but Markeith Ambles 3,000 just kind of fill out the roster.
Let's see, 2 other guys I think we're going to both agree on immensely here. Kieris Garrett, the senior receiver for Tulsa, he come back from an injury for a 5.52 one game last week.
Yep.
I think he's a good option. I think, he's very safe. I think that's a 15-point guy this week easily.
Yep.
With potential to steal some points from Lucas, and Lucas could still put up 30. And I also want to bring up Duke Williams to you. I know you're a big fan of him.
Yeah.
Kind of talk about what we were saying in pre-show when it was just me and you chatting it up. Why do you like Duke Williams? Why do you not like Sammy Coates?
I like Sammy Coates, just not in a fantasy standpoint. I think Duke Williams is clearly the guy they like to move the chains with. They like to, if they need a big catch, just kind of keep the drive alive, they'll throw it to Duke Williams. Sammy Coates is the boomer bust guy. I read I can't remember the exact numbers, but all but one of Sammy Coates' touchdowns since he's been in Auburn have gone for 30 or more yards, which is pretty crazy when you actually think about it.
That's stupid high.
Yeah.
That's really, really, really high. I'm with you, man. Duke Williams, I'm going to have to put him in a lineup or 2. I think if you're in a cash game and you roster Marshall, Williams, and Cameron Artis-Payne, you're looking at 20K, 21K in terms of 20K. I think it is right at about, and I think honestly you're going to get about 80 fantasy points.
It's fair.
I think you could look at 35 from Marshall. I think you can look at 30 from Cameron Artis-Payne and 10 from Duke, and that's 15 from Duke, and that's 80 right there. And I kind of lowballed possibly Duke. Maybe put a little much on Artis-Payne, but I really, really like him.
The guy I missed at the top, Corey Coleman. You think? I mean, it's to me it's tough because it's Baylor receivers are kind of trendy. You take the guy that just had a great game, and then he comes out and has 3 catches for 40 yards, and then the other guy, Goodley, has a big game.
Yeah, it's part of the reason why I like Goodley is because he's cheaper than Coleman, but he had 3 catches for 167 yards and 2 touchdowns. So he had a 72-yard catch for a touchdown, I'm guessing, and another catch for you can't possibly steal away from Goodley like that again. I just don't. If you roll Coleman, then you have to roll Goodley, because there's no way to me that you could just pass up on Goodley at 6,600 when Coleman's there. I like him, but I just don't think that they kind of priced him out of usage, in my opinion. One last guy I want to see your thoughts on, kind of touches on that Kyle Allen again. Ricky Seals-Jones is 3,200, and he's put up some consistent type numbers as well. I mean, I know that he hasn't really done a whole lot, but he has 21 catches for over 170 yards in the last 3 games.
Yeah, I like him. I think he's kind of like Duke Williams at Auburn. Like, if they need a big catch over the middle, like, he's a big target, they'll throw him the ball and then move the sticks. But unfortunately, they haven't been very good to move the sticks as of late. So it's tough to say, but I mean, he's consistently catching, 5, 6, 7 balls. And like a couple weeks ago against Mississippi State, he caught 10. So I think, if you're at 3,200, I think he's a pretty safe option. But if I'm gonna spend the money though, I'm gonna go Speedy Noyle, 37.
Speedy Noyle. And by spend the money, you just mean a little. I guess maybe go if you're gonna go value Texas A&M receiver.
32 or 37. I mean, like what do you really? I mean, if you have to put in Seals-Jones to fit in a Melvin Gordon, then okay, do it. But to me, otherwise, I'd take Speedy Noyle.
Okay, one last receiver question. We've had some extra time, I guess. Which Oregon State receiver would you pick, Villeman or Victor Bolden?
I think right now Villeman.
Yeah, I'm with you.
I mean, Bolden's always a good option, I think, but Villeman, I think he's emerged as their true receiver. Like Bolden's kind of the slot, kind of Brandon Cooks. They're trying to make him Brandon Cooks, and he's not. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he's not there yet. I think Villeman's the option. He's the bigger target. This Washington State team is gotten beat deep, and I think Villeman can give you that deep route.
Although I like both of them in this game.
Yeah, I think both of them do well. If I had to choose one, I'd go Villeman. I don't mind Bolden, but I end up not having him. I took out both of him and made sure I had Villeman in instead. I don't see any other receivers here. If we have some questions.
Hold on. Can we go to tight ends real quick? We got
tight ends.
Oh, it's really your guy, the top tight end on the board.
I'd like to say that Jim May Mundine was my guy. I mentioned how awesome his name was, but besides that, and the fact that Montel Cozart for Heisman died pretty quickly, I think this is more that Jordan from over at Fantasy Insiders guy who's been talking him up. Jimmy Mundine, I don't pay up for tight ends. I'm considering another Twitter name change, and it would be Punt the Tight End would be my new Twitter name, because I don't pay for tight ends. I got probably 3 options I'm looking at for tight end here, and none of them cost more than $2,500.
I like Blake Bell at tight end.
Blake Bell, definitely, and David Greenidge from NC State. 30 pass attempts, and he's getting, it seems like he's getting 6 to 7 points a game. So, honestly, that's not bad at all.
Was that CJ Uzomah from Auburn too? Is pretty good.
Uzomah's not a bad option. He's 2,500, and
Koyak from Notre Dame.
Koyak's my final guy. I think if I had to break it down, I have Bell in 4, Koyak in 4, and Greenidge. No, Greenidge in 4 and Koyak in 2. Koyak to me is more of the GPP type.
Yeah.
Well, I guess Blake Bell would too be, but Greenidge is definitely the safe option, but he's not going to get you more than 10. Koyak could go for 20. Blake Bell obviously could get 2 touchdowns. He just did it last week, but that's how I kind of rank them in terms of what they are. Is there anybody you want to talk about we missed? Anybody? Maybe a guy that we've talked about that you want to give maybe a little bit stronger opinion on and say, look, do not be this is like that CBS. Give me the bold prediction. Give me a bold prediction here.
Put me on the spot. Bold prediction. Yikes. All right. I'm gonna say Taylor Kelly's gonna have his best game of the season by far.
Okay.
I don't know how bold that really is, but
that's fine. I mean, if you look at how he's done, that's pretty solid. I mean, you're saying See, he put up 33 fantasy points against Colorado. So you're saying it could be over 33. I like that.
Yeah.
To me, I want to say I've got on this Nick Harwell kick. I know that I think Nick Harwell is going to. I can see you. We talked about it. I can see him go for 6 catches, 80 yards, and a touchdown. It's Iowa State. I mean,
yeah.
I think both sides of the receivers, you can't go wrong with Lazard or Harwell. There's guys like Fox and Garrett in that range. I think all those guys are solid options. If you're looking for one that's going to be the least owned, though, it's Nick Harwell, and I think that he could still put up 20 fantasy points.
So
I'll say
your bold prediction that he's going to break 100 for the first time this season?
My prediction will be over 100 yards and a touchdown today for Nick Harwell, which would probably mean 6 catches, 100 yards, and a touchdown. So 22 fantasy points we're looking at there from a 3,900 receiver. Let's talk some of these late slates. These are some in your area. There's a couple big guys maybe on FanDuel. You don't have to know the pricing. Just give me some of these players that you like in the later games. Give me Lamar Jordan. Give me some Lamar Jordan action.
Lamar Jordan from New Mexico. Unfortunately, he's playing against my Boise State Broncos, but I think at 4K, Lamar Jordan's a pretty good option. They run the ball a ton. Now Boise's pretty good against the run, but it doesn't. I don't think it really matters. I think that their offense is going to get yards, and I think Jordan's going to have. I think he's getting the start today because I think didn't we discuss earlier this week that
Gouch
is out.
I'm pretty sure I saw Cody Gouch is out. The problem is nobody knows how to spell his name, so Twitter searching is going to be irrelevant. I'm pretty positive Lamar Jordan is the starter and the only guy really there.
He's out. He is out as of 25 minutes ago.
Awesome.
Lamar Jordan will start.
Perfect for the late slate. I like some San Jose State guys.
Out for season with foot injury.
Yeah, I thought it was something like more severe than a game, but I guess at this point it doesn't have to be that long. I like some San Jose State guys. Joe Gray, quarterback, and Tyler Ervin. Tyler Ervin has put up some solid numbers, and I think Joe Gray is a very safe option for mid-20 fantasy points on FanDuel. They play, New Mexico State?
Fresno.
Fresno State. Really bad defensively. You're looking at Donnell Pumphrey faces off against Idaho, one of the worst defenses in the country, run defenses. And we all know how Donnell Pumphrey can put up points.
Yep.
So look at him. Devin Johnson, I've written about. If you can afford him, you play him. He plays unbelievable talent. Raheem Cato is non-existent anymore because they just don't pass anymore.
Yeah.
Passing numbers are way down. Maybe because they don't really play tough teams. They don't have to be challenged. But Devin Johnson's a guy. And Jay Ajayi, he's got to be a great option today against New Mexico, right?
Yeah. D Hart too. D Hart's a good option too. Because I heard Rashard Higgins maybe out for Colorado State.
Yeah. What do you think about Joe Hansley replacing Rashard Higgins? Do you think that's a situation where he's got some talent and he just has been overlooked because Rashard Higgins is so good, or you think he's the second receiver and that's kind of where he sticks?
I think he's a second receiver. His numbers might go up a little if Higgins doesn't play, but I don't think you can expect what Higgins has done out of him by any means.
No, yeah, I'm with you there. I think Hansley's ceiling is probably 100 yards and a touchdown.
Right.
I think he's going to get more targets. I think
they're going to lean on D Hart.
It's going to be D Hart. I really like. My problem with the late slate is there's so many good running backs. There's so many different ways you can go about it. You can go Pumphrey. You can go Ajayi, Devin Johnson. You can go Elijah McGuire, who, by the way, is the only running back. I guess Alonzo Harris is out, so he's the lone stud running back for UL Lafayette. Did you hear that news? Of course you did.
I did not hear that news.
You didn't know that? Alonzo Harris is out.
Out. Oh, wow. So I haven't played a late slate yet, so I haven't even really looked at him.
Alonzo Harris is out. Let me make sure of this. He's questionable today against New Mexico State. So I've heard that he's out, and then
McGuire could have a huge day.
McGuire in general was going to have a huge day, but this like guarantees it just because of the fact that he's going to get 18 carries now. It's like a lock. Who are the other guys? Matt Jones, I think against Vanderbilt, I think we saw what Florida wants to do, and they're not going
Aaron
to be.
Green from TCU. Boy, Catalan's out. I mean, I think if you're going to roll somebody from TCU, Aaron Green's got to be on your list.
Yeah, definitely. I think we discussed that the other day. I think Aaron Green's a good option. He's not super price low, but I think he's 4,500 on FanDuel, which is mid price. Aaron Jones for UTEP.
Oh yeah.
With the Western Kentucky matchup, there's just so many running backs. One running back I hate this weekend, who's coming off some legit games. Michael Dyer.
Oh yeah, I don't like Michael Dyer. He's pissed me off.
I just can't even fathom rolling him out with the fact that Boston College's defense is so good and run defense is so good. And I'm telling you right now, Gardner and Parker could win a GPP with that combination because they're so cheap for their the combo. And the fact that he had 300 yards and Parker was 200 of them, I love that combo. It's going to be much different. It's going to be a very low-owned play as well.
Oh, by the way, Joey Iosefa has completed his suspension. He's back.
Joey Iosefa is back, so Laka Laka is irrelevant. Not that Laka Laka was ever really relevant. How good is Iosefa for someone that never watches Hawaii games?
He's very good. Like I think there was a stat like the last 5 games of last year, like he had like 800 yards rushing, which I know it's last year, but like this season, like he played the first 2 games and he got hurt and he suspended. Now he's back. I mean, he's still on about 200 yards this year in 2 games. So, and I believe they played Washington first, and he ran for 143 against Washington.
Wow, 143 against Washington is a good day. They play San Diego State today, right?
No, Colorado State.
Colorado State. You're right. Colorado State. Yeah, I don't see why not. I think didn't John Hillman have a really good game against them?
For
a month ago, yeah, against Colorado State. I don't know how that's relevant.
It was a while ago, but yeah, he had a pretty solid day.
So I think that's an option there. There's so many running back options.
I know there's 30 guys you could legitimately take, I think, in this slate. But real quick, do you think Leonard Fournette has a breakout game that we were expecting him to have, or do you think that Alabama just stones the run like so much that
Alabama stones the run?
Okay.
Nope. I'm so anti-LSU. I think this is going to be like a 28-13. I think Bama beats them pretty handily. I don't think there's going to be a moment in the game really where we're like,
LSU might.
Oh man. Yeah, I think that this one is like in the second half, I should say, because it's going to be 0-0 when the game starts. Clearly.
It'll be 0-0 at halftime.
Yeah, I think Bama handles them pretty well there, so I'm not really worried about. I'm not thinking anything LSU. What is Bama going to like key on in that game? The running backs. There's no way Brandon Harris or Anthony Jennings or whoever is back there is going to give them any sort of reason to stay true to the past. So I don't think anybody in that run game is worthy of the risk. Whew, so many running backs in that late slate. It's hard to pick a couple there. I think we've covered enough, man. We got enough of the late slate. The early slate's where it's at. That Draftkings game. Let's see where it's at.
By the way, I guess there's one guy real quick. Grant Hedrick, Boise State might be a really good play.
I'm not on Grant today.
Yeah.
I get it. Like I see what you're saying, and I have no problem with it. I'm just not on it personally because now I think Ajayi. Like I looked at last year's game against New Mexico. I tweeted it out this morning. Hedrick was great, but he only threw for 175 yards and 3 touchdowns because they just didn't need him. Like when it comes down to it, they're going to be up, and I think Ajayi benefits. And Matt Miller had a huge game, but he's out. Do you think this is something I wanted to ask you? Shane Williams-Rhodes, what do you think his potential is against it? Like, because this seems like the game where the really bad defense can give up a big play, and all of a sudden he's got 2 long touchdowns. Do you think that could kind of thing could happen?
Yeah, definitely. I think that now that Matt Miller's done, I think Shane Williams-Rhodes takes over that number 1 receiver role, and Spurbeck I guess fills in for Miller, but Williams-Rhodes is the number 1 guy, and I think like you said, a bad defense, Williams Rhodes could turn a 5-yard play into a 50-yard play.
Yep, I have a little bit of Shane Williams Rhodes, and I ranked him as well. I think that's a very safe play at the very least.
Yeah, I like my boy McNichols too. Minimum price.
Minimum price, McNichols, not a bad option if you're looking for a deep sleeper. So the two bold picks here. Taylor Kelly from Arizona State goes for mid-30s fantasy points, best performance of the season for him. And I have Nick Harwell for 22 fantasy points, about 100 yards and a touchdown. So keep an eye on that as the day goes on. We'll be around, I'm sure. Make sure if you haven't already, we're going to away 2 T-shirts, 2 Lou Dogs T-shirts. I need you to tweet me at RealistChrisK. I need you to add the hashtag LouTV, and I need you to tell me Trevor Knight's fantasy point total. And if I had to do it, I would say 39.6. I went there. And what would you say, Zach?
Trevor Knight, putting my hatred aside, 34.8.
You think it's going to be that? You think it's going to be good? I feel really good now that you said 34.
Yeah, I mean,
really good now.
Look, it's one of those things like I can't deny that he's played well. I can't. I still don't like him, but he's played well. You gotta
give him some props.
Yeah.
Who knows? Maybe I'll tell you what. If he sucks today, I'm going to be so off that I'm going to be so pissed at him that I will probably hate him almost as much as Andrew hates him. So
if he has a bad game, I'm going to be really pissed that I actually put any kind of faith in him whatsoever today.
You went to the dark side, is what you did.
Yeah.
But anyways, guys, appreciate you guys jumping on. A great crowd. Remember to tweet me the Trevor Knight point total with the hashtag LouTV. Anything before 12 o'clock will be accepted, obviously. So get yourself a chance at a T-shirt, and good luck today. It's a big day, 15,000 in first place. So I hope if I don't win it or Zach doesn't win it in that order, Andrew, I do not hope wins it. I hope one of you guys wins it, takes it down, and uses some of our plays from today. So have a good day, and we'll see you sometime this week, I'm sure.